Welcome to the Green Machine podcast. I'm Martin, your host today, and I'm joined by Tony Galvin. Tony will be familiar to many of us Irish supporters from his exploits in the Boys in Green in Euro 88, which is 35 years on. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's called that is a long time, isn't it? That it really is. Making me feel old.
Yeah, welcome anyway, Tony, and thanks for joining us. I know you've been as many of our listeners will know, as a secretary and chairman now of Risk London. We've had Tony at some of our events previously, and joined by Packy Bonner the last time, which was
Yeah,
actually our 35th anniversary of the club. So, yeah, that was few years ago now as well, but we did look back then at Euro 88, and yeah, it was a bit fresher in the memory then. Tony's joined us today because he's got a fantastic book out, which I'll show up to the screen there. This is Galvanised, and this is your book, Tony, that you did with David Saffer, and it's about the footballing tale of two brothers, basically yourself and your brother Chris. So tell us a bit more about how it came about.
yeah. How it came about was David Saffer actually has written books about Leeds players in the past. He's a Leeds supporter, and he met Chris a couple of times to get him to sign some books and some various bits, and then he talked to Chris about various. And then Chris said, "Have you ever met my brother?" And he said, we did talk about maybe doing something together. And David said, "Who's your brother?" So he knew Chris, but he didn't really sort of know. He knew who I was, but he didn't link the two. He didn't realize that we were brothers. And so from that moment on, he came. I met him, and we decided we'd try and do something to talk about how our careers started from a different starting point and finished at a different end point. And basically, the problems he'd had as a young player at Leeds, trying to get into that very top Don Revy team, and how I sort of delayed my entry into football from going through university, and his career didn't quite go the way he wanted it to go, whereas my career sort of took off from the moment really I signed at Tottenham in 1978.
I mean, it's a very fresh kind of approach to kind of doing a book as well. So I'm sure it'll be of interest to lots of people. I mean, it's interesting as well. It's like one of those sliding door moments, I suppose, in
Yeah,
the sense that,
yes,
your brother Chris was a teammate in the same dressing room as someone who'd have a big part to play in your career later on, Big Jack.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Chris always said about Jack in the dressing room was, like, how do we describe it? A bit of a character, could be a bit awkward. Always cadging cigarettes off his teammates. Never had any of it. Never carried much money around with him. A proper character, one not to be messed with. Chris was said he was always very wary of him. Tried to keep him on side, and obviously you had the famous Johnny Giles in there as well. And
Mm.
actually, Johnny's position was one that Chris was hoping to sort of, he was looking at that position maybe sometime in the future, because obviously Johnny was getting a bit older,
Mm.
but still a great player. So those two players were in that dressing room. Yeah, two absolute legends
Yeah,
of,
without
of
doubt.
Irish football.
Yeah, without doubt. And we've both been, been fortunate to be in their company in the past, of course, with
Yeah.
West London and things. So, yeah, we were actually at an event recently with Johnny Giles, and he was in great form, still going on, very enthusiastic about Irish football, and
Yeah.
like I think reflecting on the challenges of the working with the FAI as well. And that kind of brings us round to you. I mean,
Yeah.
your kind of call up for Ireland. How did that come about?
Well, yeah. Now that was the FAI not being at its most efficient. Let's put it like that. So Chris and me, Chris Hewton obviously was already playing under Johnny, and then Owen Ann became manager, and Chris and me had a discussion, and I said, "Well, I've got an Irish grandfather born in Limerick, so I should be eligible." And so Chris said, "Great, I'll go back, tell Owen the FAI will be onto it straight away." Well, about 12 months later, I think that finally all this sort of paperwork was done. It wasn't really a lot that difficult. They just had to find evidence that he was born, his birthplace in Limerick, and there was some paperwork, and they said they couldn't find it. Well, Anyway, that took about 12 months, and to make my debut, which was a championship qualifier against Netherlands. Was it Rotterdam? I'm not sure. I think it was Rotterdam.
Mm.
Anyway, that was my first game, but it just took such a long time. And every time Chris came back off a trip, a game, I said, "Chris, have you heard anything?" He said, "No." They said they're dealing with it. They're dealing with it. Very frustrating it was.
Yeah, I think it was against Holland, your debut and stuff. And I think,
Yeah,
yeah, in a steam company as well.
yeah, oh yeah,
It was 1982, 22nd of September.
yeah,
And Ruud Gullit was another player that you would come again and play
yeah.
against in 88. So
Yes,
very good Dutch side as well to take on there.
yeah. Not quite as good as the team in '88, but
No,
it
no.
was a very quite an experienced team. Yeah, yeah. I mean, in those days, the Netherlands were a very competitive team. You know, one of the top teams in Europe and the world. They're at that level probably for about 20 years, 20 plus years.
You were under some pressure though, really, as well from your club, Tottenham, of maybe waiting for the England call up, weren't you?
Yeah, Ray Clements was very sort of playing for England at the time, and Ray was very friendly with Don Howe. Don was the coach, and Don told Ray to tell me not to make any hasty decision. Well, it was hardly a hasty decision, but I mean, he just said they used to have B internationals in those days. What
Yeah.
a waste of time they were. And they said, we're going to pick him, put him in a squad for a B international. I'm not sure if that game ever happened anyway. It didn't happen. I said, oh, no, I've decided that I want to, because I was 22 when I joined Tottenham. I said, time's running out. I want to play for Ireland. I've made a decision and I'm not going back. So, I never looked back, never regretted it.
Mm.
Um, and obviously went full circle when we finished up playing England in 1988.
Yeah, incredible times, which we will come on to focus on. But like, I'm just thinking, it's FA Cup final weekend over here in the UK where I'm based this
Yeah,
weekend, and you're a player who's played in two FA Cup finals.
yeah, two FA Cup finals. Was in the squad for '87, but didn't play. So, yeah, actually, we played in 2 seasons. We played Wembley 6 times because we two replays, and obviously you got the Charity Shield game. So it was quite a exciting sort of 12 months or more. The 81, 82. 81 obviously is the one that always people remember because of Ricky's goal.
Yeah.
One of the greatest goals of all time. Well, one of the greatest FA Cup goals of all time.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was amazing. It's quite strange, actually, as well. Another sliding doors moment. I was actually on a football tour this weekend, and I met a former teammate of yours, Gary Mabbott, and I said
Oh,
to him,
really?
I've been chatting to you, yeah, and yeah, he's in
Yeah,
good form, asking for you.
what was Gary? Where did you come across Gary?
It was at in Great Yarmouth. He was on it was a
Oh,
football tour, and he was a celebrity guest
oh
presenting, which
really?
spoke fantastically well.
All right.
With the kids and stuff, really good.
Yeah. All
And
right.
he's still
That's interesting.
he's an ambassador at Tottenham as well.
Yes.
Like you've had that role as well, haven't you?
I'm not as an ambassador, but I was working at
Working there,
Tottenham
yeah.
with a few of the older players. Yeah, Graham Roberts, Mickey Hazard, Phil Beale, Martin Chivers, Alan
Ah,
Mullery,
right,
but
yeah.
a few of us were let go. Should we want to?
Ah, right,
There was
okay.
a bit. There was a bit of cost cutting, so we were told. So a few of us sort of stopped doing that
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
summer. So no
Cost cutting in
longer.
the modern game. It's
Yeah, they've
how
got to
ironic
save the
when
money. They need every penny to pay those players' wages.
yeah, of course they do, yeah. It's incredible though, really thinking about your playing in the FA Cup finals and obviously Wembley, the old Wembley, which for some of our younger listeners probably won't
Yeah,
kind of resonate as much, but that was
yeah.
certainly an experience, wasn't it, playing there, Twin
Fantastic
Towers?
because when I got into the team, it was QPR away, the third round of the FA Cup. Ricky was playing on the left hand side, and Ricky hated playing on the left hand side. And it was a question of shoehorning people into. Keith was always trying to shoehorn the players into various positions, and somebody had to play on the left, and Ricky detested it. So I'd already played there in some games, and then the rest I just stayed in the team because I could kick with both feet. That's somebody at the door.
That's all right. No
Don't
worries.
worry. Yeah, got one of them ring. The wife's probably bought something. No, I don't know. Something from Amazon or something. Sorry about that's
No
pre-advertised
worries.
on Amazon.
Could be the book. Could be the book coming through from Amazon.
Yeah,
You can get it on there.
yes. Yeah. So where were we? So anyway, that it was an amazing sort of few months from there, and me being in the team sort of helped to balance out what was a very talented midfield, sort of three or four, but none of them were great at running back. It's
Yeah.
funny how when you watch some players are really good, they're really a lot quicker running forward than running back. And that would definitely apply to Ricky.
Mm.
We had Ricky and Glenn and Ozzy. Ozzy wasn't a problem, but Glenn wasn't really one to be constantly running back towards his own goal. So I had to. It was my job really to sort of look after that left hand side, going forward, coming back, covering for Chris Newton, and obviously he was a fantastic overlapping fullback. So Chris used to bomb past me, and I would just sit in and cover for him.
It's amazing that you mentioned like Lozzie Ardiles there as well, and again comes back to kind of Ireland, and it's a bit of a tenuous link this one. But when you made your debut for Ireland, Kevin O'Callaghan was in the squad,
Kevin.
wasn't he? And then obviously he was a teammate famously of Ozzy in Escape to Victory. Did you ever chat to them about Escape to Victory and how that came about?
Yeah. Ozzy talked about it quite a lot because Ozzy loved it. He said it was brilliant. He says he's never had so much fun. So he talked about all these famous people he'd had been in the film with him. So yeah, Ozzy said it was just one great big laugh. He
Yeah,
said nobody really took it that seriously. I mean, I've seen the film. You can probably it's
yeah,
it's an interesting film, but it's probably worth a watch. But Ozzy just said it was great fun,
yeah,
and they were very well paid. So
yeah. It was a nice little
those were the
bonus
days
then.
when footballers weren't earning fortunes like they are now. So he said it was amazing meeting Sylvester Stallone was in it, wasn't he?
Yeah, Michael Caine as well. So
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, he said they're
very
really great. They're really great to work with. They all love football. Sylvester Stallone struggled to understand football, but he sort of seemed to like the idea of it. But I said Michael Caine was great, great fun. So it was wonderful. We all went to the premiere in London, and we gave Ozzy a fair bit of stick when we'd all watched the film because some of the acting is a bit wooden in it, if that's not an unfair description. But
yeah.
Ozzy took it in good heart.
Yeah, I mean, an absolute legend, isn't he, with Spurs and stuff? So
Oh,
it was something
absolutely,
again.
totally,
But
yeah,
did you
yeah.
play? Did you play in the testimonial for Aussie where
Yes,
Maradona played?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Right,
That's mentioned, I think, in the book. I was
right.
asked a question about that. Yeah, we played on the same team as Maradona, and got the ball from Maradona a couple of times and gave it
Oh,
straight
nice.
back to him. I seem to remember having a 1-2. If he gave you the ball, you sort of think he was just really lending you the ball so he could have a little rest, but you had to give it back to him. That was a fantastic experience to play on the same side as Maradona, and obviously Liam was playing for the other side
Yeah,
for Milan. It was Inter, wasn't
Inter,
it?
yeah, yeah.
And
I,
he so I had a chat with him after the game. But obviously, it was a very competitive game, fantastic atmosphere.
mm,
But it's the only time I was in the Spurs dressing room when the door opened and Maradona walked in. Everybody, we had Glenn, Clem, you name it, everybody was in there, and everybody just stopped,
wow.
looked up, just quiet. I don't know what it is, admiration, respect. It was like people going up to him, players going up to him, asking for his autograph in the changing room, and it was. Yeah, I'd never come across somebody who's probably so famous. I suppose I was playing with famous people, but he was on like slightly different level to everybody in those days,
Mm.
Maradona.
Oh, I mean, incredible player, wasn't he?
Yeah,
And
amazing,
yeah,
amazing.
and another player you mentioned there though, like probably one of Ireland's best ever players, Liam Brady.
Yeah,
Obviously, played with him for many years. Did you enjoy playing with him?
loved
Because I
playing with
think
him.
it's in
Didn't
the book
didn't
it
play with
covers, isn't
him
it?
as much as I like, but Liam was great. Loved Liam because he was a fantastic player, but amazing player, and the fact he was the first player really to go and succeed in Italy. I think he played with two very top clubs, and that proved what an outstanding player Liam was. He had a real fantastic ability, good on the ball, everything, but he had a real turn of pace when he used to get out the wrong side of a defender. He would just 4 or 5 yards, he could sprint away from him and then pass, you name it, he could do it, shoot. Wonderful player to play with. And that was one of the reasons why when Jack came in as a manager, I know I'm jumping a little bit, but there was a bit of friction between him and Liam. And it wasn't the fact that Jack didn't respect him as a footballer. He did, he definitely did. He realised what a world-class player he was. He just wanted Liam to be playing a bit higher up the field, and Liam was used to sort of dropping back and receiving it off your back four, full back in sort of in midfield, maybe in his own half. And Jack just didn't like that. He didn't want that. He says, I don't want that. So there was friction from the beginning about the way he wanted Liam. He wanted him higher up the field, and he wanted him just to do whatever he wanted higher up the field. But Liam did go with it. And then there was that horrible day, which I've mentioned before, the game against West Germany, which was a very sour moment. That was leading up to the 1990 World Cup. But I've jumped ahead there.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine, because I was going to bring you back to, you were part of the celebrations of the 200th anniversary of the founding of Reykjavik, and that's synonymous with Ireland's first victory in a competitive competition, as a sense. We did win a trophy.
Jack was really good. Jack wanted us, as well as making us more professional in terms of the way we prepared for games. He came across as if he looked shambolic and disorganised. That was just an impression. He wanted the players to be organised together. If you were supposed to be somewhere at a certain time, you had to be there. He didn't like people sort of wandering off, because there was a thing in the past with the Irish team where they used to all disappear when they all landed in Dublin. And sometimes you wouldn't see people till the Monday morning training session, or it could be Monday lunchtime. Jack stopped that, no chance. Once you're together. You're not leaving the hotel. So he's very professional like that, very professional. So where were we? What were we?
And I think the other thing he changed, though, was when they, just tactically, having the players adapt of 86 World Cup, that he done a presentation, didn't he, to you all, and said, this is how we're going to play.
Yeah. We got this famous session. We met at Lily Shaw once, and we travelled all over the country. See, it was a day, it might be an international day, and we didn't have a game. I remember we all turned up at this event, so called, and Jack did the presentation, and he'd been watching quite a few teams, and he just had this thing about not losing the ball in the middle of the field. Too many square passes, they nick the ball, they break, they score, you're 1-0 down. So he just wanted the ball to be sort of higher up the pitch. He wanted the team to push up. He wanted you to risk the ball only in the final third, if that's been a bit simplistic. But he wanted you to get the ball forward and then play all your football in that final third of the pitch. He didn't like fullbacks passing it into midfield, didn't like goalkeepers really rolling the ball out. He said, sometimes the Lansdowne pitch in those days wasn't the greatest. And sometimes it's quite difficult to play a game that was, passing the ball, rolling the ball on the floor. Sometimes it suited to a slightly longer ball. And he got a lot of criticism for it initially, but ultimately, and as you quite rightly mentioned, we won that tournament in Reykjavik. It was a small tournament, but it was significant in the sense that it got the lads together close season. We won. We played two good teams. They were both good teams. Obviously, it was Czechoslovakia in those days. I mean, so we proved we could match them, and we became almost within a few games of Jack joining a very difficult team to play against and a difficult team to beat.
And that went on then for the qualification for Euro 88, basically, because it was a very tough group, wasn't it? Bulgaria would have been quite a threat in that one.
They were a top team in those days. Yeah, that's a place where Jack really lost in the dressing room. It was 1-0, and I think Frank might have equalised, and was very close towards the end of the game. Draw would have been a fantastic. They had a tremendous record at home, and we sort of gave the ball away somewhere around the halfway line, and the ball was lost. And the usual, I don't know if it might have gone to a penalty, but it may have been, or they attacked, and so we lost. Jack was furious, and that was Jack telling you that, we had to come away from this place with a draw. We'd have been delighted. As it turned out, Scotland did us a favour on the very last game, didn't they? They went to Bulgaria and won against the odds, which meant that we qualified. But obviously Belgium were in our group, a very strong team in those days. So it was a very tough group.
And what was it like going along the trips then as well? Them teams as well. I mean, not everything would have been, covered by TV in those days and stuff. And I know I've read Mick McCarthy's book, and he talks about the qualification campaign, how difficult it was, and even the kind of dark arts. Like he said, he was spat at twice and that kind of stuff. Did that happen an awful lot, or a lot of that kind of stuff? To be able to handle yourself, I suppose.
Particularly when you played away from home, the referees in those days just weren't as competent or as strong as they are these days, and they would always defer. They would always go, if any marginal decision, they would always go with the home team. And yes, there was a lot of off the ball stuff going on, referees missing it or saying they missed it and just turning away. So there was a lot of that, pulling, shoving, spitting. Yeah, I mean, I once played a game, the semi-final, the UEFA Cup against Sajuk Split away, and it was the most intimidating place I'd ever played football. And until this day, I've never played anywhere like that, fireworks. But the way they behaved on the field was unbelievable. And the referee just turned a blind eye to it all. But Mick's dead right. You had to put up with that. It was just, and obviously what they want to get you to retaliate.
Yeah.
And then you'd get the booking, or you'd get, you could get sent off. So that's what they were very good at. And it applied to a lot of European teams in those days.
Yeah.
Very, a lot of those teams very strong at home.
And then obviously we sought qualification though for the again in a very tough group thanks to Scotland, Gary Mackay's goal. And you scored your only international goal against Luxembourg.
It's Luxembourg, yeah.
In the May of '87.
But still Lisa got one. And it was an important victory. We won away from home, but those games are never easy. It's all about the result. It's not so much about how many goals you score. I mean, the same applies today. It's all about getting the result. Goal difference really is sort of major issue. It's getting the results that's the important thing. Yeah, and also when I was with you with Packy said he looked at the team sheet for the Scotland game when we won 1-0 away in Scotland, and he said he thought that was the best. He read everybody who played that night, and he just said that's one of the best lineups he's ever seen in an Irish team, because everybody was playing for top teams. The Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Tottenham. So it was. He just pointed that out. He's pointed it out several times that particular night. Obviously, we won, and we were fantastic that night. Very difficult once we got in front. Very difficult to break down. Because I think Ronnie played fullback that night.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
me.
Yeah.
And me and Ronnie said to me, he says, how important it was to have you sitting in front of me, and sort of, because there was wave after wave of attack. And he said, we were very hard to beat that. We showed how hard we were to beat that night. It was a great performance, great atmosphere. All the Celtic supporters were supporting us, which I'll never forget. I couldn't really I'd never really experienced that before. That was unbelievable. Sort of a lot of the Scottish supporters supporting Ireland. I guess that always applies.
It does to some respect.
Yeah. When they draw Scotland, so that was special. And then they did us a favour, which was nice. And then we got through to the Euros in Germany.
I mean, that's the most incredible time in Irish football. Really, I think the first one everyone always remembers, especially Stuttgart as well. But you had a few injury concerns going into the tournament, but Jack was very loyal, wasn't he?
Yeah, Jack was very loyal. Jack just always said, if you're fit, you'll play, but you need to be fit. It was like, no good to me if you're not fit. So just make yourself fit. Just make sure you're not injured.
Yeah.
I was at Sheffield Wednesday in 1988, and I wasn't even in the first team at the end of the season. So I was playing in the reserves. Jack came to watch me once in the reserves. I think he didn't. I don't know if he stayed very long. He just probably maybe half an hour or something, and left. And I think he said to me, he says, "Oh, I didn't really care how you played. I wasn't interested. Just to make sure you could still run."
Yeah.
So that's all. And then so what I saw you could. So that was it for me. That's the way Jack was. Obviously, he wanted you to play in a certain way. He wanted to be able to trust his players. He didn't like bringing new players in who necessarily couldn't trust. He would bring them in. He had to on occasions, but he would be a bit wary. He preferred to go with, if you like, tried and trusted.
Yeah. And then obviously the build up, I mean, this was an 8-team Euros as well, incredibly
Yeah,
tough group,
incredible.
USSR,
Yeah.
Holland, and then England as well.
Yeah.
So what was the build up like to that England game? Because
The
it
build up
must have been
was,
incredible.
everybody was just, I don't know, everybody's so excited. The players obviously were, but a bit tense, but lots of media there. Obviously, because the first game was us against England, so we had a lot of the English media there as well interviewing us. So, no, it was tense, but everybody was very positive, quietly confident we could, get a decent result in that first game. It was very hot. I was surprised how hot it was. I don't think. Well, obviously, I've never been to Germany in June. This would be June. Was it June?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
So
Yeah,
it was very hot. I do remember that. All the games, it was boiling hot. Although our best performance obviously was the game against, well, was it the
USSR.
Soviet Union? Was it
Yeah, it
the
was. Yeah.
Soviet?
Well,
Yeah. So it was that was our best game, and that was in the evening, which suited us. It was a bit cooler.
mm,
But the England game, obviously, everybody remembers that we got in front, played well. We played well in the first half. We caused them some problems, quite a few problems. They didn't get themselves going. They were on the back foot when they went 1-0 down. As I say, when we got in front, we were hard to beat, hard to break down. And I do remember before the game, Chris Waddle was playing. Obviously, he was playing for England. Sort of, he was like he was sort of looking at me and he was laughing at me. He was like having a joke before the game, and there was an air. There was a sense that they weren't taken as seriously. I'm not sure if that was the case.
mm,
There was a sense from me that they were not. They thought they were going to win.
yeah,
Let's just put it like that. They could be sort of not treating us with the appropriate amount of respect. I got lots of abuse from the supporters because obviously being a white player, there was loads of your English supporters from all different clubs, lots of abuse, which sort of surprised me. Um, but there you are. Because remember that was because I was stood right out before the game started, and they were having a go at me, and I couldn't really work out why. So the Irish balls must have been in another part of the ground, and I suppose they were just, probably calling me traitor and all that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah,
Just get on with it. But then their whole attitude changed during that first half because they realised they were in a game,
mm,
and they came out in the second half. They played a more expansive game. The biggest mistake England made that day was Glenn Hoddle didn't start. Glenn Hoddle came in the second half and started to sort of dominate, and it passes through for Gary Lineker and others, but he didn't. Bobby Robson didn't pick him.
yeah.
And obviously Packy had in second
Brilliant.
half was had the game of his life.
Yeah,
But even when I look back at some of those saves, and even he said it, he expected to make those saves.
mm,
He was a top goalkeeper,
yeah,
so could have played for anybody in England, but he decided to stay where he was. He loved it there. So, and yeah, obviously, as I said, the rest is history. And it was that night was unbelievable.
I thought it was.
It was incredible. Jack just said, make sure you're in bed by 12 o'clock. I don't care what you do. You can do whatever you like.
Yeah,
And obviously, you know what the Irish are like. That
yeah.
there's none of this. We've got a little room together, and you're not coming in. I mean, we just got mobbed by football supporters. There was no. I mean, it wouldn't happen these days, would you? Because you'd be fenced
No.
off. You'd be in a room somewhere, lots of security. It wasn't like that, and everybody was there that night will remember it because it was such a famous occasion. I mean, to beat England in a tournament was the. I don't think anybody could really believe it.
Yeah. And especially the first tournament as well. And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the first one. Yeah, of
that's it.
course.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first time on the world stage, really,
yeah,
especially
yeah.
because
Of
the
course.
world would have been watching
And
it.
when I've tried to, when people look at it, my son even says to me that he can't, he can't believe that there was only 8 teams in it.
Yeah.
And then when you go through, you name all those teams. I mean, we're talking the top teams, probably top teams in the world at the time
Yeah.
in that tournament. It's unbelievable.
It's a really strange one, actually. I know it's a bit obscure to mention this, but they had the kind of pennant sometimes, and it has the qualifying teams on the
Yeah,
pennant, and it had
yeah.
and they actually had the Northern Ireland logo on that for Ireland because they didn't even really have it. So, I mean, that just shows you
Is
it's
it really? I did.
yeah, they did. Yeah, some of it. I've
Oh
got one of them
dear.
somewhere in the collection. But yeah, look, look, it was summed up fantastically. I think Christy Moore's song, wasn't it? Joxer. He sums up the whole experience then, and then obviously on to play USSR.
Yeah,
And I know the amazing goal in that game, Ronnie Whelan's
yeah,
incredible goal. And then sadly going out to an incredible Dutch team because it was literally
yeah,
the group winners, wasn't it?
yeah,
So
yeah. Jack was an angry man at the Soviet Union game because I got brought down by Dasayev, the goalkeeper, completely nailed me. Sort of got the ball, just knocked it past him. Down I went, and I wasn't even sure what had happened. And Jack just said, Jack went mad. Just he had to go. The referee just said it was a disgrace, and that was an example where sometimes they used to, famous goalkeeper, big country, big team, small country, small team. There's an element of that. Jack said that it was a blatant penalty, and we were winning 1-0 then, and they'll go up the other end and equalise. But even though I wasn't playing for Ireland that many years, that was definitely the best performance that I'd ever been involved with. We were unbelievable that night as a team. I don't know what came over us, but we played some fantastic football as well. Sort of football, Jack like progressive, up, get the ball forward, but take people on 1-2s, crosses in the box. It was a shame we didn't win that game. We definitely deserved to. And then obviously going on to the Saturday game, again, baking hot. It was absolutely baking. Um, I've never seen so many orange shirts. Obviously, their support, because it was quite close to the border, wasn't it? The ground.
yeah,
So amazing atmosphere. Again, we started off well. The Paul McGrath hit the post. We were sort of causing them real problems. But I think that he got to us, and then they gradually found their feet. And probably for about 70 minutes of that game, maybe 60 minutes, they it's a phrase, they passed us to death. They just passed us, and all you thought you were running around and not really getting the ball. So we'd get the ball, and it constantly be coming back to you, and obviously it wears you down.
mm.
But when we got near towards the end of the second half, we thought they'd sort of run out of ideas, and Ruud Gullit changed positions. They moved him around, and there was a sense that we could hang on. But they scored what was a fortunate goal. It was
Yeah,
just no other way to describe it. It was just weird, the goal. And watching it where I was on the pitch, it seemed to be in slow motion. The ball just spinning, and Packy couldn't do anything about it. It was a horrible goal to lose to. We'd have
yeah,
preferred to lose to one where somebody sort of hammered it into the top corner. But yeah, and it was quite frustrating, disappointing. The boys were really down after the game, really
yeah.
down.
I think Jack said later, didn't he? It was a fantastic chance for us because no one really knew what to expect from Ireland and
Yeah,
had underwritten us off basically and maybe not respected them. But so yeah, but an incredible time for the Irish supporters, and obviously then a team kind of coming having that experience and in their prime basically
yeah,
going off to try and qualify for a World Cup
yeah.
in 2 years later.
And
So
that was what was required, really. After that, you had to go on and qualify for a World Cup, and that was really the only aim that had to be achieved with a team with such a strong team. Obviously, I was getting towards the end of my career, but Jack kept me in the squad. I was in every single squad that Jack picked. Um, I think I was sub a couple of times. I played in one game in Spain, which we lost. But Jack wanted to keep the squad together. And even though Kevin Sheedy would be playing where I was playing before, he still wanted the same players around him, even if they weren't on the pitch. So Frank carried on. Liam was carrying on. I carried on. Some of the older players, they were carrying on. He didn't want to bring new faces in. He said he had enough. He didn't, he had his sort of 14, 15 people who he would pick regularly. And unfortunately, going into I'd moved to Swindon then, and unfortunately, I just had a serious problem with my back. It was just sort of wear and tear, so I had to have an operation. And Jack gave me 2 weeks before announcing the squad. He said, "I've kept a place open for you, but you just have to prove your fitness." And in the end, I had to ring him up and say, "Jack, it's just not fair. I'm not going to be fit enough. So you need to make a decision now about who you want to put in the squad." So Jack then had a couple of weeks to ponder. And I think Bernie Slavin was the
yeah, he
one
did. Yeah,
who went into the squad. So I went to Malta with him to the training camp. That was great. I enjoyed that. Did a bit of rehab work with Mick, and it was good, and it was nice because I had a few evenings with Jack in the bar, and the lads had obviously gone. So some reports, and it was nice to have a chat because when you sort of playing, Jack was always kept his distance. He wasn't one really to be mingling a lot with the players after the game. He would a little bit, but um, it was nice, and he was relaxed, a bit more relaxed. And he told you a few stories about Leeds and other stuff, and about managing and what it was like at Newcastle and all that sort of stuff.
mm.
So that was nice. And anyway, I sat on the bench in the first game when we drew with England, played really well. Draw was the right result. Probably didn't deserve to win, but we didn't deserve to lose. And then I flew home because Ozzy was manager, and Swindon were had a real financial problem. They'd been promoted, Swindon, to the first division, as was, and they got relegated 2 divisions because of financial irregularities that predated Ozzy. And so I came back just to help out and give a bit of support to Ozzy. And Swindon then got reinstated back to where they started. So they went up to the first, down to the third, back to the second, where they started. So anyway, and that was my last experience of that. So my last experience was the England game, watching that game that night. That was a nice one to go out on,
So you did
even
get
though
to
I
the World
wasn't
Cup
playing.
though. Yeah, so
Pardon?
you got to the World
Yeah,
Cup though as part of it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it
I
shows you
did.
how valued you were.
I was there, and I would have been, I would have been. Jack won, he had, he wanted you to. He said you can help out. You can do, stay with the goalkeepers after the lads go in. You can. There's always something useful you can do, and I think he wanted Frank to sort of adopt that sort of role because Frank wasn't involved in any games. I don't think, was he?
No, no.
Yeah. So I think that was. I'm not sure how Jack and Frank got on actually.
Yeah, yeah, right.
That
Yeah.
I think I've heard a few. I'm not sure if they got on that well. Don't know. You might know more about that than I do.
No, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting as an Irish fan reading all the books now, and people reflect, don't they, in time and stuff.
Yeah,
And I think even got on the back of like Liam Brady had a wonderful film out
yeah.
recently, didn't he, about his time abroad. And it was, he says how Jack wrote to him after and apologized, and
Did he
they kind of,
apologise?
they did make up kind of thing of
Did they make up
what he
that?
was. Yeah, they did.
Did they
Which is
make up?
nice.
Did they meet at a game, or where did they meet
I think it was a
separately?
letter that he sent well, at the
Yeah,
end of a career of his career or something. He did.
yeah,
There was a letter, and Liam
yeah.
reads it and says that it wasn't out of anything kind of malicious how he was. But
Yeah.
I mean, overall, you must have been well respected by Jack for him to bring you there, and
Yeah,
from an
absolutely. Yeah,
iconic time.
absolutely. No, and they're adamant. They're adamant. They want him to go.
Yeah,
He said, "No, I want you there. So just come and enjoy it and do what you can." Yeah, absolute respect. And 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 obviously, I do have to go back to the. So when in the, I think it was December before the 1990 World Cup, we played a game against West Germany, and Jack played some of the older players just really just to check they were up to it, still up to it. So me, Frank, Liam played in that game, and we were pretty poor in the first half, but we were playing against a very strong team.
mm,
There was no Italian players in the team that day, but because it was a friendly. But essentially, that was the team that went on to win the World Cup.
yeah,
So that was my last ever game. That would have been my last game because the Spain game had been before that. So this is really Jack wanted to test were these players up for the to go in the squad, uh, and that's the most difficult dressing room I've ever been in, ever in my career at any level, amateur, non-league, professional, you name it. That was the saddest dressing room, most awkward dressing room I've ever been in at half time because Jack took Liam off. I think Jack said he thought we were being overrun in midfield. We didn't have the legs or something. So he took Liam off, I think, about half an hour into the first
mm,
half. But it was before the first half had finished. And the argument was, why did you do it? Why did you have to do it? Couldn't you wait till half time? And Liam took it as a slur that he could have waited till half time. It was from his own supporters. His career was coming to an end for Ireland. And basically, it was everybody just got in the dressing room, just looked at the floor or each other, and tried to avoid what was going on. It was just
mm.
an argument between those two. It was horrible, really. It was horrible. It was really, and then we went out and played well in the second half. We Frank may well have scored anyway. We equalised. We drew that game, and Jack came up to me after the game and said, "Right, that's it. You're going to the World Cup. I've seen enough today to know that you're fine. If we're really desperate, and then it was one of them. If we're really
Mm.
desperate, I can put you on the pitch." But it was a horrible day, really, that to see that going on between Liam and Jack. So I'm pleased to hear that they
Yeah, they
made.
did.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
really necessarily aware of that.
Yeah, that's from the film. Yeah, it's a nice thing of when he reads and he reads his letter from him, and yeah, that wasn't from a bad place, basically. But and I
Yeah,
know that you did like back to Jack. I mean, it's two iconic figures in Irish football, and Jack was headstrong as we know, and Liam probably is as well.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah,
Yeah,
but and I know then in later years they had a reunion, didn't they, for Jack and Carlton House? You attended
yes.
that, didn't you? And that
Yeah, I
was an
went to that. Yeah,
incredible.
that was fantastic. That was
Yeah,
really well put together, well organised, very
yeah,
impressive. Sat on Jack's table. Obviously, by then Jack was, he wasn't particularly well. He was with
mm,
his wife, but he was smiling at me. So,
yeah,
it was nice to see him smile. His wife was really good looking after him. It was a fantastic evening, really, really well organised,
yeah,
and we had a lot. We had a fantastic turnout of ex players as well,
yeah.
and obviously '88, the '90s, and lads
94.
later turned up. Some of the lads who played '90s, the early 2000s were there as
Yeah.
well. I think Niall was behind a lot.
Yeah, no, it was yeah, yeah.
Niall did a
I think it's
great
a
job.
lovely thing to do, and I think
Yeah,
like even you're saying about in the aftermath of the England game that you all partied with the fans. I think that's
yeah,
unique with the Irish football that iconic names, figures, moments in Irish football and history for the team and stuff. But
yeah,
you they're all grounded, the lads. They're all together
yeah,
and I
yeah,
think respect the fans as well and engagement with
yeah,
fans. As you've shown that yourself with coming to Risk London events and stuff, and
yeah.
everyone loves meeting ex-players and
Yeah.
chatting about these times because it's important, I think, to have the memories and
Yeah,
and reflect on it.
absolutely. But that was something that's a bit unique about playing
Yeah,
playing for Ireland is that the way the supporters and the players sort of mixed.
Yeah.
They mixed really well. And even if, the game hadn't gone particularly well, there was sort of, well, as long as you tried your best, they'd be
Yeah.
pretty fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
as long as they could tell if you didn't try, but you're playing for Ireland, representing your country. So if you didn't try your best playing for Ireland, then it'd be pointless you being there. And obviously, there were moments when Jack would lose his temper and, players would be dropped. It did happen. Jack wasn't scared of dropping anybody.
Mm.
He knew what he wanted, but it was a fantastic time. And from my point of view, I was proud to be part. And I've said this before, just proud to be part of what was the start of what, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years of successful Irish football, international football. So we laid there was I don't know what you call it, a base, a foundation was laid in the late 80s. And it was nice to be part of that and see some of the outstanding players that followed us, the likes of Robbie Keane and other players. And Robbie has said that obviously he grew up watching that team, so they inspired a lot of footballers. That sort of 80s, 90s team.
Yeah.
So
no, it's amazing. It's an amazing time. And no, like I just want to thank you for your time again. I'm gonna throw out the book.
Don't forget the book.
Again,
Yeah, I mean,
Galvanised.
there's a fair bit. There's a fair bit in there about Jack and playing for Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. I mean, it's great insight, obviously, into your career as well, and your brothers, and just all the legends that are featured in it, like you say, Hoddle, Matt Busby's mentioned, Jack Charlton, everybody, and we are just to announce as well, Wrist London, the London Sports Club, we're going to be at the Cladder Ring on Friday, the 9th of June, which is literally almost a few days shy of the 35 years on from Ray Houghton's putting the ball in English net. Which we're going to be joined by Tony at that for a book signing. So do get to the Cladder Ring in Northwest London, and we'll hear more of Tony's stories about Irish football and the days in the green of Ireland. But I just want to thank you for your time, Tony. Absolutely brilliant as usual.
Okay.
And best of luck with the book.
Cheers. Thank you. Cheers.